In September 2023, I saw an ad in a Facebook group looking for an actor, voice actor, narrator, middle-aged male, Canadian accent, willing to read an audiobook on a potentially controversial topic. Well, talk about an alignment of the stars that day. I'd been working on building a voiceover resume via my YouTube channel for some time now. And if you know me, you'll know I appreciate controversial topics. Because to me, I believe that's where the truth actually is. Somewhere beneath the veils of media's obfuscation. So I responded to the ad via direct message, linking my YouTube page in there, and in a few short hours I was reading a sample chapter for them. And not long after that, I got confirmation that they would love to have me narrate the book. This would be my biggest voice acting gig to date, and although I was confident, I felt a little trepidation. Though I can't quite put my finger on the exact reason for it, or the point of realization about it. But as the first few chapters were being completed and sent off, I started to realize I was playing a role in getting this message out there. And although it wasn't my message, I do believe it's an important one, and one which had Canada on the front page of many news sources around the world in the early weeks of 2022. So, some backstory. Some of this requires no explanation, some requires a bit, and some will require the listener and reader to have a very open mind to understand why and what actually inspired the formation of the Freedom Convoy, which saw truckers from all over Canada unite and converge on Canada's capital city of Ottawa as a formal protest against vaccine mandates. Yeah, there are a few trigger words in there. Freedom, vaccine, mandate, and for some, Ottawa. Now, each of us has opinions formed around each of these words based on what we choose to accept or reject from the media's official coverage and representation of those things. And although each of us believes we are 100% correct in our thoughts on what the Freedom Convoy was all about, author Tom Marazzo was there from almost day one, and he lived and breathed that constantly evolving situation firsthand. So if anyone could try to set the record straight about what the Freedom Convoy was all about, it would surely be Tom Marazzo. So a little more backstory. A few days each week, I have a really long commute back and forth from work. So I tend to channel surf on the radio to relieve the almost certain boredom. And although driving conditions are far from boring in the deep midwinter of Canada, I actually hate driving. I hate sitting and doing nothing. Driving to me is a colossal waste of my time. So anyway, one night while channel surfing, I hit upon a news station from Toronto called AM 640. The topic was the Freedom Convoy, which was forming and growing and already en route to Ottawa at that time. The guest on the radio show was a fella named Tom Korski from a Canadian news site called Blacklock's Reporter. The host and the guest were really hitting on a nerve that I know many Canadians were feeling about the overreaching of the government restrictions during the pandemic. Suddenly, more interested in the topic than not just Mr. Korski's voice, I turned up the radio. This was not another Trust the Science radio talk show where the host and the guest tried to verbally bully the listeners. Quite the opposite. These folks were talking about things that I and many others agreed with, things we felt necessary to speak quieter about in public, and even cryptically introduce into conversations to gauge the thoughts of our group of community. Here, these folks were on public radio discussing a counter-narrative to much of what had been going on, most of which we were becoming dumbed down enough to accept as our new normal. And though the radio spot was only about 10 minutes long, I felt an immediate feeling of relief that I was not an island in my thinking. My small group of like minded friends and I always remained stalwart in our thinking. But to hear someone I did not personally know talking about these things openly on the radio and not some frantic TikTok rant was very heartening. Now, I'm not going to debate whether COVID was real or not. I know a few folks who got it. Tom, the author, describes himself as having it in Ottawa with the Omicron variant. Luckily, I never got it, despite not having had the vaccine. So my purpose for saying these things is twofold. First, to say why I feel this is an important book, and second, to bring this story back into the public ear, mind, and eye to help set the record straight about what the Freedom Convoy was actually about. I have no stake in the profits of this book. I was not asked to make this video, and I played no role in the Freedom Convoy other than listening and reading about it. But after reading Tom Marazzo's book so intently over almost 3 months, and essentially trying to represent or become that first person narrative you read in the book, I felt like I was immersively binging a Netflix series for the first time. And I got to the end of the season 1 cliffhanger and felt myself eager for the next season to find out what happens next. I truly hope there is not a new season of this particular story. As engaging as it was, I was literally brought to tears several times reading Tom's accounting of peaceful protesters being beaten, elderly veterans being disrespected, trucks being vandalized by police, the theft of food and fuel from the truckers by the police, and the goosebumps of the stories of interacting with the police where the powder keg could explode at any moment. And ultimately the chill of acceptance that they indeed had to pack up and move on before things got a lot worse for them. The book is called The People's Emergency Act, Freedom Convoy 2022. The author is retired Canadian Armed Forces Captain Tom Marazzo. In the book, Tom recounts the good, the bad, the ugly, the inspiring, the terrifying, the mundane, and the frantic truths about the convoy. A friend asked me, he said, "What's the book really like?" And I said to him simply, "You know what they told you on the news, right? Not that."